Former Springbok head coach makes a statement that divides an entire nation. You know, something extraordinary is happening. Peter de Villiers, the man who led South Africa through some of their most challenging years, recently dropped a bombshell that sent shockwaves through rugby circles from Cape Town to Johannesburg. His claim, Grant Williams is South Africa's best scrum half. Not one of the best. Not promising, the best. And when pressed on what makes this 29-year-old from Paarl superior to legends like Faf de Klerk, his answer was simple but devastating. Williams can do something the others can't.
This isn't just another opinion piece or social media hot take. This comes from someone who coached at the highest level, who understands what separates good players from great ones, and who isn't afraid to challenge conventional thinking. But here's where the story gets interesting. Most people dismissed his statement immediately. Too controversial, too bold, too different from what everyone else was saying.
What if he's right? What if we've all been watching Grant Williams without truly seeing what makes him special? What if the metrics we use to judge scrum halves are outdated, and Williams represents something rugby hasn't fully recognized?
The answer to those questions changes everything we thought we knew about South African rugby's most debated position. Because if Peter de Villiers is correct, then the conversations about squad selections, game plans, and future strategies need to be completely reconsidered. And if he's wrong, then understanding why he's wrong reveals just as much about what modern rugby actually values. Either way, this story demands investigation. Not surface-level analysis or knee-jerk reactions, but deep examination of what Grant Williams actually brings to the field and why a respected coach would stake his reputation on such a polarizing claim. The journey to understanding this controversy starts not in the present moment, but years earlier in the Western Cape, where a young player from Paarl Gymnasium was developing skills that would later become his signature weapons.
Paarl Gymnasium doesn't produce rugby players by accident. This Western Cape institution has a reputation for developing athletes who understand the game at levels most players never reach. When Grant Williams walked through those gates, he entered an environment that valued intelligence as much as athleticism, strategy as much as strength. While others relied on natural talent, Williams was building something more sustainable, a complete understanding of the scrum half position from every possible angle. After school, Williams continued his development with the Maltese teams at Stellenbosch University, representing Western Province in Sevens rugby, and gradually expanding his skill set. The Sevens game taught him speed of thought and execution that 15-a-side rugby rarely demands. Every second mattered. Every decision had immediate consequences. Those lessons would prove invaluable later. His professional debut came in February 2018 for the Sharks against the Lions. At 21 years old, Williams was stepping into senior rugby without the build-up most players receive. No Junior World Cup appearances, no age-grade international recognition, just a young halfback who'd worked his way through provincial systems and earned a chance through consistent performance, rather than celebrated potential. That debut revealed something coaches immediately recognized. Williams thought differently about the scrum half role, where others focused primarily on service and game management. Williams saw opportunities for direct impact. He could spot defensive gaps that others missed, had the acceleration to exploit them, and possessed finishing ability that made him dangerous near the try line. Over the next few seasons with the Sharks, Williams accumulated experience in the United Rugby Championship and Currie Cup competitions. He wasn't always the first-choice starter, but every opportunity he received added another layer to his developing game. Patient observers noticed his try-scoring rate climbing steadily upward, an unusual trend for a player in a position typically valued for different contributions. By August 2021, his consistent club performances had attracted national attention. When Sharks teammate Jaden Hendricks suffered a leg fracture, Williams received his first Springbok call-up as a replacement. The selection wasn't accompanied by media excitement or public celebration. It was a practical choice based on form and availability. Nobody predicted it would lead to World Cup glory 2 years later. But standing at 1.74 meters, Williams faced immediate skepticism about whether his physical dimensions suited international rugby. South African rugby has historically favored bigger, more physically imposing players at every position. The conventional wisdom suggested that smaller halfbacks would struggle against the power and intensity of Test rugby. Williams answered those doubts the only way that matters: by performing when opportunities arrived. His international debut came off the bench in a narrow loss to Australia, a challenging introduction to Test rugby's unforgiving standards. But he didn't retreat into safety-first rugby or try to disappear into background roles. He kept looking for ways to impact the game directly, kept trusting the instincts that had brought him to this level.
The 2023 World Cup campaign provided his breakthrough moment on rugby's biggest stage. As part of the squad that would eventually lift the Webb Ellis Cup, Williams contributed crucial minutes during the tournament. His 4 tries and just 21 test caps demonstrated exactly what Peter de Villiers would later emphasize. Williams possesses scoring ability that changes how defenses must approach South Africa's attacking structure. Think about the implications of a scrum half who genuinely threatens the try line every time he touches the ball near the opposition's goal area. Defensive systems designed to shut down the Springboks' traditional power game suddenly have to account for a speed and opportunism threat from an unexpected source. That creates space for teammates, forces defensive adjustments, and opens attacking possibilities that wouldn't exist with a more conventional halfback. By the time Peter de Villiers made his controversial statement in April 2025, Williams had accumulated over 60 appearances for the Sharks, 21 test caps for the Springboks, a World Cup winners' medal and a European trophy. His try-scoring record for a scrum half stood out dramatically from his peers, and yet most rugby analysts still didn't consider him South Africa's premier halfback. That gap between Williams' actual achievements and his public perception is where Peter de Villiers' argument gains traction. Because if you strip away preconceptions about what scrum half should be and evaluate players purely on what they actually deliver, Williams presents a compelling case. The question isn't whether Williams can do everything that traditional scrum halves do. The question is whether the things he does uniquely well are more valuable to team success than the areas where others might have marginal advantages. Peter de Villiers didn't become a Springbok head coach by following conventional thinking. His tenure from 2008 to 2011 featured bold decisions, unconventional selections, and a willingness to challenge rugby's established norms. When he speaks about play evaluation, his perspective carries weight earned through years of coaching at rugby's highest levels. His assessment of Grant Williams centers on a specific attribute: try-scoring ability, not service skills, not game management, not tactical kicking, the capacity to cross the try line. To many observers, this seems like an odd criterion for ranking scrum halves. Isn't the position primarily about facilitating others' scoring rather than personal points accumulation? So Villiers' argument flips that assumption. He suggests that in modern rugby, where defensive systems have become increasingly sophisticated and traditional attacking patterns face mounting resistance, a scrum half who can score tries creates disproportionate value. The threat he poses forces defensive adjustments that create opportunities throughout the team's attacking structure. Consider how defenses prepare for matches against the Springboks. They study forward patterns, analyze backline moves, prepare for tactical kicking strategies. But if they also need to account for genuine scoring threats from the scrum half position, defensive resources get stretched across more potential danger zones. That single additional consideration can be the difference between defensive systems holding firm and breaking down under accumulated pressure. Williams' 4 tries in 21 tests might not seem extraordinary compared to wing or center statistics, but for a scrum half that ratio represents exceptional finishing ability. It suggests someone who recognizes try-scoring opportunities that others miss, who has the acceleration to exploit narrow gaps, and who possesses the composure to finish under pressure. The comparison to Faf de Klerk becomes inevitable. De Klerk's career achievements include 2 World Cup victories, over 60 test caps, and a reputation as one of the most competitive halfbacks in world rugby. His impact on South African rugby's recent success cannot be overstated. He defined the modern Springbok scrum half role through tenacious defense, precise service, and tactical awareness. But here's where de Villiers' argument gains credibility. Faf de Klerk has scored 2 tries in his entire test career, 2 tries across more than 60 international appearances. Williams has doubled that total in roughly 1/3 the number of caps. The statistical gap is substantial and suggests fundamentally different approaches to the position. This isn't about diminishing de Klerk's contributions or suggesting his achievements lack value. It's about recognizing that Williams brings a dimension to the scrum half position that creates different strategic possibilities. If you need someone to control game tempo, execute tactical kicks with precision, and defend aggressively, de Klerk's resume speaks for itself. If you need someone who can turn half chances into tries, Williams' scoring record suggests unique capabilities. The debate ultimately centers on what modern rugby values most from the scrum half position. Traditional metrics emphasize pass accuracy, territorial kicking, and defensive work rate. Those remain important, but as rugby evolves and defensive systems become more complex, the ability to score from unexpected positions gains increasing significance.
Williams represents a different philosophy about how scrum halves can impact matches. Not better or worse than traditional approaches, but different. And in specific game situations, those differences might provide exactly what a team needs to break down stubborn defensive structures. The South African rugby public's reaction to Peter de Villiers' statement revealed how deeply divided opinions remain about player evaluation. Social media erupted with passionate arguments from all sides. Faf de Klerk supporters pointed to his World Cup medals, his consistent excellence across multiple seasons, and his leadership qualities. Williams advocates highlighted his scoring record, his opportunistic instincts, and his impact in crucial matches. What got lost in the immediate reactions was the more nuanced conversation. De Villiers was actually starting. He wasn't claiming Williams had surpassed de Klerk in every aspect of scrum half play. He was suggesting that Williams' specific strengths in try scoring make him the best option for South Africa's current strategic approach. That's a significantly different argument than simple player rankings. Modern rugby increasingly values players who can perform multiple roles within their positional framework. Williams' ability to threaten the try line while also fulfilling traditional scrum half duties creates tactical flexibility that coaches find invaluable. He can execute the standard game plan, but he also provides an additional attacking dimension that forces opponents to prepare for threats they don't face against more conventional halfbacks. The Sharks coaching staff understood this early. They built attacking patterns that leveraged Williams' speed and finishing ability, creating situations where his instincts for finding space could be maximized. Those patterns succeeded consistently enough that opposition teams had to adjust their defensive structures specifically to account for Williams' scoring threats. The European rugby experience adds another dimension to Williams' profile. Playing for the Sharks in the United Rugby Championship exposed him to Northern Hemisphere playing styles that differ significantly from South African domestic rugby. The tactical approaches, weather conditions, and referee interpretations all require adaptation. Williams' success in those environments demonstrates versatility that translates across different rugby contexts. His work rate deserves examination as well. The try-scoring highlights attract attention, but Williams also performs the unglamorous tasks that scrum halves must execute consistently. His ruck arrival speed, his ability to accelerate play when his team needs momentum, and his defensive positioning all meet international standards. He's not sacrificing fundamental scrum half duties to focus exclusively on attacking opportunities. The debate Peter de Villiers sparked extends beyond just Grant Williams or Faf de Klerk. It raises fundamental questions about how rugby evaluates player contributions, how positions evolve, and how teams maximize their strategic advantages. Those questions will shape South African rugby's future direction as the sport continues developing. Williams' career hasn't finished unfolding. At 29, he's entering what should be his peak years, with potentially another World Cup cycle ahead. How he continues developing, whether he maintains his scoring rate, and how he adapts as defenses study his patterns, will determine whether de Villiers' assessment proves prophetic or premature. South African rugby's strength has always been its depth. The competition between Williams, de Klerk, and other talented halfbacks pushes everyone to higher performance levels. That internal competition benefits the national team by ensuring whoever gets selected has earned the opportunity through demonstrated excellence rather than default availability. Peter de Villiers' controversial statement about Grant Williams accomplished something important. Regardless of whether people agree with his assessment, it forced rugby audiences to examine their assumptions about position requirements, to look beyond traditional evaluation criteria, and to consider whether their conclusions about player quality were based on objective analysis or conventional thinking. Williams' response to that attention has been characteristically straightforward. He keeps performing, keeps scoring, keeps contributing to team success. His career trajectory suggests someone who focuses on controllable factors rather than external opinions. That mentality serves him well in professional rugby's pressure-filled environment.